much, though. What is it?
Oh, thank fuck for that.
An apple, take 3, A marker. B marker.
3, 2, 1, action.
When I read episode 3 and saw that I would be bringing Dany and Jon Snow together for the first time, the hairs on the back of my neck were standing up.
Jon meeting Dany. It was kind of an exciting, thrilling thing to watch happening even as we were shooting it.
So I think there is a spark from the beginning. Within the first scene when they meet, there's that kind of friction. So there's something bubbling.
People have been waiting 7 years for various people to meet and maybe get it on.
How very dare you.
Just kill it, Amelia. Just kill this scene. Kill it. Kill it.
We divvy up the scripts, and Dan will get one half and I'll get the other half, and we're always kind of fighting over which half because there's usually a scene both of us really want to write, and of course in this episode it was the first meeting between Daenerys Targaryen and Jon Snow.
The scene, in essence, had to be relatively static. And so to achieve a sense of visual variety, we wanted to shoot from many different angles and to cut wide and get a sense of the majesty of this room, you know, whenever possible without destroying the intimacy of this initial meeting.
Part of the fun of it is kind of undercutting the drama a little bit, you know, in the very beginning when Missandei does her lavish introduction of Daenerys and all the titles that Daenerys has acquired over the years.
You stand in the presence of Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, rightful heir to the Iron Throne, rightful queen, rightful heir?
Rightful heir to the Iron Throne.
Oh, that was a good start. Rightful heir to the Iron Throne, the mother of dragons, the Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, the unburnt, the breaker of chains.
And then Jon's waiting for Davos to do the same for him, and Davos wasn't really prepared for that because Jon doesn't really collect titles.
This is Jon Snow.
And then there's that awkward beat.
He's king in the north.
For both Dan and me, I think it's one of our favorite moments in the whole season. And we've both watched that now hundreds of times, and I think I laugh every single time.
And then, of course, the scene becomes this fencing match.
So I assume, my lord, you're here to bend the knee.
I am not.
And a wonderful moment where she comes down talking about her faith in herself. And I was expecting Emilia to play it a certain way, and on the day she played it, it was so much better than the way it was in my head.
Do you know what kept me standing through all my years of exile? Faith.
She made it so much better. I really understood the iron will of the character in that moment and understood these two immovable objects.
The worlds colliding and you realise the difference between these worlds. Between Jon's sort of humble, not wanting to show off, and then Daenerys, who is all show, who is all power.
I was born to rule the Seven Kingdoms, and I will.
You'll be ruling over a graveyard.
She's been the chosen one, and then suddenly this Jon Snow is like coming up in with a similar game plan of like saving people. No. She's ready for it when he comes in, but she tries to do her diplomatic thing first.
Jon is a terrible politician. Dany has this extraordinary pride and driven sense of entitlement to the throne, and that bars them from making a connection.
Am I your prisoner?
Not yet.
We're going to do a new version of the Walk of Shame, but I think what's going to provoke people with this one is that she's going to be on a leash. That's not a good signal to the rest of the female world, it's not. But he's not a very subtle guy. This is divine.
As much as we're trying to imitate the Walk of Shame a little bit, obviously it's a slightly different affair because he's a conquering hero, so it's just the people he's dragging on the end of the chain are the ones that the crowd are booing.
This was soft tomatoes, and also there was what looked like phlegm.
It was a bit green. It was made with aloe vera gel, so I'm sure it was a marvellous face mask. It was actually really fun, and I did think, how am I going to keep a straight face?
One of the most fun moments or beats in the scene for me is enjoying Euron, Pilo's Caesar, returning from the campaign moment of just his incredible kind of charisma, going through the blowing kisses to the gals.
I have to be honest. He's making me hard.
I realized talking through Mark Mylad's episodes how good he is at getting from one scene to another scene, where you just wipe Euron on his horse behind a pillar, and then he wipes out behind another pillar, and he's in the throne room. That's a very nice little piece of filmmaking there.
And then, of course, coming into the throne room itself, and what he thinks is his, flirtation and his, furthering his ambition to marry Cersei, and of course Cersei is playing him like a violin.
There's only one reward I want.
And the war is won.
Of course, the fun of that triangle sets up with Euron shamelessly torturing Jaime is great fun.
I find it very upsetting, he comes in here and, he has the coolest looking outfit of all. He looks like a rock star. And he has the funniest lines.
Does she like it gentle or rough? A finger in the bum. Not now. We'll talk later.
Team worker. Clearing. Okay, Chris?
Yeah.
Set, and action.
Make sure you change the torches every few hours. I don't want her to miss a thing.
It was, literally the first day of shooting of the season, and it's a 4.5-page, incredibly intense scene. So it was a heck of a thing to ask Indira and Lena and Rosa to drop into on day one of shooting.
It's acting. So you put yourself in a difficult emotional place, you put yourself in the shoes of the character, and you go there.
Take one, Seymour.
I never got to have a mother, but Marcella did. She was mine. She was the best thing I ever did. You took her from me. Why did you do that?
Obviously, she wanted revenge for Marcella. And what way is more painful than watching your daughter die, unable to touch her? As she wasn't.
Action.
I want you to know I understand.
The scene for everybody in the audience, for me anyway, is about satisfaction of revenge. Instead of indulging the character's sadism, being the arch baddie that we all love to hate, her approach is that this character is a three-dimensional mother and human being. She plays it almost with an unwillingness, like a runaway train that she has no control over, that she cannot stop herself, and I thought that was such an incredible choice.
Rosabelle and I had to wear manacles, and we were tied to the wall. And we had trouble, because either they'd come undone because we were fighting against them, or I couldn't get them off. And literally, at the end of the day, I was like, mate, can't get it off. Can someone help me? And everyone's gone. Pete from props is like, I think we need a saw. And I had to be sawn out.
Thank you very much for an excellent day. I know it's a very tough day to start with. Everyone's work's appreciated. That's indeed a wrap. Thank you, guys.
What about Casterly Rock?
The Unsullied will be there soon.
Casterly Rock was a huge challenge because we didn't have a location for it.
It was on our laundry list of things that we were trying to find. And then what we ended up with was right under our noses. And that was our River Run set that we used last year.
Alpha 29 Alpha, take 6. E-mark.
And so consequently, we ended up with basically 40 foot of battlement to redress and reskin, and then with the idea that the visual effects department would extend that set.
The set that Deb Riley designed reminded me of Salzburg Castle, which I had scouted for another project. Then we kit-bashed a couple of castles that we had and added some features from Salzburg Castle. It's perched over, I think, the Rhine, so it looks just like Casterly Rock.
What was incredibly helpful there was the structure and the script of Tyrion's voiceover narrative.
Interesting thing about my father. He built Casterly Rock as we know it, but he didn't build the sewers.
which allowed us to jump forward in time.
So it's a courtyard, plus a battlement, plus an exterior wall, plus a doorway.
Ready and action.
It's a big stunt affair, so we've worked very closely with Raleigh, the stunt coordinator, in terms of how ladders are put up onto the side. We're talking ladders here that's sort of 30 feet high or something. You know, it's quite a scary height to be working at, so that involves a lot of detail to get that right.
3, 2, 1, action!
We dropped one of our boys 18 feet on what we call a gold tail drop.
Ready and action!
Which was quite a hard hit, which was fun to do. Maybe not so much for him, but for everybody else it was quite fun.
It's very difficult to put together a kinetic sequence with a spear and a shield. Swords are much more fun because you can really swing them about. Spears are hard. Rowdy and Jacob between them came up with what I think is a good journey for that character, with the determination and focus of that character to get to his goal.
I've been training for the last 2 weeks. This year's going to be slightly harder because I've got a helmet on for the whole fight. There's no peripheral vision, there's no up, no down, only straight ahead.
Along with Jacob and through that character's eyes, we drive forward with this expectation, as Tyrion says, you know, we will be victorious. And of course, that's not the case. We're completely blindsided with a classic David and Dan rug pull. When Grey Worm stands up onto the battlement and sees that his fleet is being attacked by Pilu's gang, it is a moment where we as an audience realise that Tyrion has been completely outflanked by his family.
Where are they? Where are the rest of the Lannisters?
We found a great place in Spain that just looked different enough to all our other castles to be somewhere like Highgarden, which is rich agriculturally, you know, very fertile area, and didn't look like a northern castle at all. It didn't have that heavy stonework.
It had a slightly feminine quality, and of course the view was just sumptuous. The morning we shot there, we came up at sunrise to get going early in the morning, and I think maybe one of the castle exterior shots catches a little bit of it, but there was a mist across the fields there that was just magical. It was Tolkien-esque, it was extraordinary.
We had to remove a lot of modern additions from there and build things to disguise the things that we couldn't safely remove. So hopefully it's largely invisible work from the construction point of view. And then the set dressing, adding in all of the chests and the gold, there was a lot of things that went into that location. Having already seen the taking of Casterly Rock, we just keep relentlessly showing battles. There's a diminishing return. The important emotional beat here was to get Jaime and Diana's character, Lady Olenna, into the same room. That was what the real battle was.
Here we go. Background.
The idea to march with Jaime and behind him was a dramatic device, not to repeat a battle, and also just to show the focus, the stone-cold focus of that character of Jaime in his mission to what he has to achieve, which is to overthrow House Tyrell, in which he does with extraordinary success.
Will there be pain?
No. I made sure of that.
That's good.
And by the way, she managed to chug a whole glass of wine. That's not easy to do because there were 12 different takes on that bit, but she chugged it every time, and that's a pro.
I'd hate to die like your son.
But of course, at the end, she then tells him the truth about what happened to how Joffrey died.
Jaime finally gets to turn the tables on someone. He finally gets to kill one of his enemies, which we haven't seen that much, and she still wins the scene. She wins her death scene, which is a hard trick to pull off. And so much of it comes down to Dame Diana Rigg.
We've been so lucky to have her on the show.
That's a series wrap on Diana Rigg.
To sign off on one of the great television characters. Bidding adieu to Diana Rigg's participation in Game of Thrones, it was special.
I can remember still the first time we met her in the lobby of a hotel in London. You know, you don't audition dames, they kind of audition you. She's been incredible ever since.
Tell Cersei